My brother's rehearsal dinner was the night my parents tried to take everything I'd built, not metaphorically, literally. They wanted the deed to my condo. Growing up in Nashville with my parents and my younger brother Elliot, I learned early that the rules were different for each of us. I was the responsible one, the one who got part-time jobs at 16, who paid for her own college applications, who figured out FAFSA on her own while my parents sat at the kitchen table helping Elliot with his. They weren't cruel people, not in the dramatic sense. They were just people who had decided, somewhere along the way, that I didn't need as much, that I was fine, that I would always be fine, and for a long time I was, because I made myself be. I graduated from Vanderbilt with a degree in accounting, got my CPA license at 24, and by 28 I was a senior associate at a mid-size firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'd moved specifically to get some distance and start fresh. I lived carefully. I saved aggressively. I didn't buy things I couldn't afford. And 3 years ago, at 29, I put a down payment on a 2-bedroom condo in a building with a rooftop terrace and a gym and a view of the city skyline. It wasn't enormous, but it was mine. Every dollar of it. My parents came to visit once, that first year. My mom walked through every room slowly, running her hand along the granite countertops, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows, and I remember feeling something I hadn't expected. Not pride exactly, but something closer to relief. Like, maybe now they'd see me. My mom turned around and said, "Elliot would love this." I smiled and said nothing. Elliot is 3 years younger than me and has always moved through life with the comfortable ease of someone who has never had to worry about the net beneath him, because he knew it was always there. He's not a bad person. I want to be clear about that. He's charming and funny, and people love him immediately. He just never learned that things cost something, because for him, they never really did. My parents covered his car payments twice. They co-signed his apartment lease when his credit was too low. They paid off a credit card balance one Thanksgiving, quietly, the way you slide someone cash at a funeral. Not wanting to make a scene, but knowing it has to be done. None of this was discussed with me. None of it was offered to me. I didn't need it, they would have said, if I'd ever asked. And they wouldn't have been entirely wrong. When Elliot met Fiona, I genuinely liked her. She's warm and straightforward, a school nurse from Knoxville with a loud laugh and no patience for nonsense. They dated for 2 years, got engaged, and set a wedding date for late October. A Saturday at a vineyard outside Nashville, 3 hours from me and 20 minutes from my parents' house. I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I said yes without hesitation. I took the time off work, booked my hotel, bought the dress in the color Fiona chose, a dusty rose that I'd never wear again, but that looked genuinely beautiful in her vision board. The Friday before the wedding party had a rehearsal dinner at a private room in a downtown Nashville restaurant. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, long wooden tables. Fiona's family filled one side, ours filled the other. My parents were already there when I arrived. My dad in a blazer that still had the department store crease in it. My mom in a blue wrap dress I recognized from Easter 5 years ago. They both hugged me. My dad called me kiddo. It felt normal. It stopped feeling normal about an hour in. We were between the salad and the main course when my dad leaned over to me. I was sitting 2 seats down from him and said, quietly, "Hey, can we talk for a second? Just the 3 of us." I assumed it was something about the toast he was giving the next day. He'd mentioned he was nervous about it. We stepped out into the hallway near the restrooms. My mom followed. The noise from the dining room softened behind the door. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. "You know how proud we are of you," he said. Something in my stomach went still. "Elliot and Fiona," my mom said, "they've been having a really hard time finding a place. You know how the market is. Everything is just so expensive right now." I nodded slowly. I'd heard vaguely that they were renting a 1-bedroom in a neighborhood that had gotten pricey. "We've been thinking," my dad said, "and we talked to Elliot about it, and we think it might make sense for you to sign your condo over to them as a wedding gift." The hallway was quiet. I could hear the muffled sound of someone laughing through the door. "I'm sorry," I said. "You're single," my mom said. "You don't need all that space, and you could move into something smaller, maybe rent for a while. You're good with money, you'd figure it out." I stared at her. Then at him. That condo is my home, I said. I bought it. I have a mortgage on it. We know, my dad said in the tone adults use with children who are being unnecessarily literal. But family helps family. Fiona's pregnant. That part I hadn't known. I absorbed it for a second. I'm happy for them, I said. But that doesn't have anything to do with my home. It has everything to do with it, my mom said, and her voice had shifted slightly, hardened, just at the edges. They need space. They're starting a family. You're alone in a 2-bedroom? You could rent something perfectly nice for a lot less. Mom, I have a mortgage. I can't just hand someone a mortgaged property. It doesn't work like that. We're not asking you to think about the logistics right now, my dad said. We're asking you to think about your brother. I looked at him for a long moment. Have you thought about giving them your house? I asked. You have 4 bedrooms. You and Mom are empty nesters. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence. That's our home, my mom said. So is mine, I said. My dad's face did something complicated, and then he said, very quietly, you've always been selfish. Since you were a little girl, always thinking about what's yours. I felt that land somewhere in my chest. I'm going back inside, I said. We're not done, he said. I am, I said, and I turned back toward the door. What happened next happened fast. My dad grabbed my arm, not gently, and pulled me back. I turned, startled, and he slapped me. Open-handed across the left side of my face, hard enough that my ear rang. The door to the hallway had swung open at exactly that moment. A waiter was coming out with a tray. He stopped. Behind him, I could see 2 of Fiona's relatives who had gotten up to use the restroom, both now completely still in the doorway. My face was burning. My eyes went hot, and I looked at my father, this man who had never once hid me before in my entire life, and I felt something finalize inside me, like a door closing on a room I'd been leaving for years. I took out my phone and I called 911. My mom made a sound like she'd been hit herself. My dad went gray. I told the dispatcher that I'd been struck by a family member and that I needed an officer. I gave the restaurant name and address. I kept my voice level. My dad said, "You're doing this tonight, at your brother's rehearsal dinner?" "You hit me tonight?" I said. "At my brother's rehearsal dinner." The waiter had set down his tray. He asked, quietly, if I was all right. I said I was okay and I thanked him. Fiona's relatives had gone back inside. Through the door, I could hear the room starting to go quiet, the way rooms do when something is wrong somewhere nearby. 2 officers arrived in under 10 minutes. I showed them the mark on my face, a redness spreading from my cheekbone toward my jaw. One officer spoke to me. One spoke to my father. My mom stood against the wall with her arms crossed, not crying, just watching, like she was waiting for something to resolve itself. My dad was cited for simple assault. He did not get arrested that night, but a report was filed. I was told I could pursue charges formally if I chose to. I said I would decide, and I took the report number. By the time the officers left, the rehearsal dinner had completely dissolved. People had filtered out or gone quiet. Elliot found me in the parking lot. His face was a kind of devastated I hadn't seen on him before. "Why did you call the police?" he said. "Tonight of all nights." "He hit me, Elliot. I know, I know. But this is my wedding weekend." "I know that too," I said. "I'm sorry that happened at your dinner. I mean that. But I wasn't going to stand in that hallway and let it go." He looked at the ground. "Are you coming tomorrow?" I thought about it. "I don't know yet," I said. I went back to my hotel. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I looked at the police report number in my phone. I looked at my face in the bathroom mirror. The redness had deepened to a visible flush. Nothing that would photograph dramatically, but something that would be tender for days. I texted my friend Lacey, who knows my family history better than almost anyone. She called me in 30 seconds and stayed on the phone with me until midnight. She told me to go to the wedding if I wanted to and to leave the moment I stopped wanting to. She told me I'd done the right thing. She told me none of this was about me. I went to the wedding. I showed up in that dusty rose dress and I stood where Fiona needed me to stand and I smiled for every photo. Fiona hugged me for a long time before the ceremony and said, against my hair, I'm so sorry about last night. I told her this was her day and I was glad to be there and I meant it. She squeezed my hand and didn't let go for a moment. My parents were there, of course. My dad did not look at me. My mom looked at me once, a long and complicated look that I couldn't entirely decode. Neither of them said anything to me. I did not approach them. At the reception, Elliot danced with Fiona to a song she'd loved since college, and I watched from my seat and felt something that was genuinely warm, separate from everything else. The fact that he had found someone who loved him. The fact that they were happy. The fact that this one moment was real and good regardless of everything surrounding it. I left at 8:30 before the cake was cut. I found Fiona and told her the wedding was beautiful and that I loved her and that I'd be in touch. I found Elliot and hugged him and told him I hoped the rest of the night was everything they wanted. I did not speak to my parents. I walked out to my car in the vineyard parking lot under a full October moon, and I sat there for a moment and I thought, I'm done. Not angry done. Not dramatic done. Just done. Quietly and completely and without any need to announce it. I drove back to Charlotte the next morning. In the weeks that followed, my parents called and I did not answer. My dad left a voicemail that was, astonishingly, mostly about how I had embarrassed the family by involving the police. There was no apology. There was no acknowledgement that he had put his hand on my face. There was only the suggestion that I had overreacted and created a scene. I sent one text to both of them. It said, I'm not interested in a conversation right now. When and if that changes, I'll let you know. Please don't contact me until then. My mom texted back 3 paragraphs. I read them and did not respond. I consulted with a family law attorney, not to pursue the assault charge, though she told me that option remained open, but to understand my rights around my property. I changed the beneficiary on my financial accounts. I updated my emergency contact at work and at my doctor's office. I did everything quietly and methodically, the way I'd done everything my whole life. I also started therapy. I want to be honest about that, because I think there's sometimes a version of these stories where the person sails through everything untouched, perfectly resolved, already healed. I wasn't. I had sessions where I cried for the first 20 minutes without being able to say exactly why. I had a session where my therapist asked me when I first remember feeling like I had to earn my place in my own family, and I couldn't answer right away because the answer was always, and I'd never let myself say that out loud before. Elliot and I have talked twice since the wedding. The first time was stilted and uncomfortable. He kept trying to find a middle ground that didn't exist, kept saying things like, I know Dad was wrong but, and I kept waiting for the sentence after but to surprise me. It didn't. The second time was better. He called to tell me about the baby, a girl due in the spring, and he sounded genuinely happy, and I told him I was happy for him, and I meant it. We didn't talk about our parents. It felt like an agreement we'd reached without having to negotiate it. Fiona texted me a picture of the ultrasound. I sent back a heart. We follow each other on Instagram now. It's small, but it's something. As for my parents, my father sent a card at Christmas. Inside it said, in his handwriting, we miss you. We hope you'll reconsider. There was no apology. I put it in a drawer. My mother sent a longer letter in January. She wrote about how hard she had tried. She wrote about sacrifices. She used the word ungrateful in the 3rd paragraph, and I stopped reading there, folded the letter, and put it with the card. I don't carry a lot of rage about it. That surprises people sometimes. When I tell them the story, they expect me to be angrier, more bitter, more something. But the rage burned through fast, in those first couple of weeks, and what it left behind was something quieter and harder and, in its own way, steadier. I stood alone, in my condo. The view from the living room window is the same skyline it's always been. I had a dinner party in February, 6 people, homemade pasta, 2 bottles of wine, the kind of evening that stretches past midnight because no one wants it to end. Lacey was there. My friend and colleague Priya was there. My neighbor Jonah, who I've become close with in the last year, was there. At some point late in the evening, Lacey raised her glass and said, "To your home." And everyone raised their glasses, not knowing entirely what she meant, just following the warmth of it. I raised mine too. I thought about the hallway at that rehearsal dinner. I thought about my father's face going gray when I dialed 911. I thought about standing in the vineyard parking lot under that October moon and knowing, without any drama or ceremony, that I had chosen myself. There's a version of this story where I describe that as a victory, where I frame it as revenge served cold, as justice, as triumph. But it doesn't feel like that most days. It feels more like arriving somewhere I should have been all along. It feels like waking up in a place that was always mine, in a home that was always mine, and finally, not waiting for someone to tell me I'd earned it. I already know I did. I've thought a lot about what actually happened that night in the hallway, not the slap itself but everything that led up to it, because a moment like that doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from 100 smaller moments that were allowed to pass without consequence. The co-signed leases, the quietly paid off credit cards, the years of me being told I was fine, while my brother was treated like someone who needed to be caught before he fell. That pattern had a logic to it. And the logic, if you follow it far enough, ends in a hallway outside a rehearsal dinner with a man who genuinely believed he had the right to take what I'd built. That's not an excuse. It's a cause. And causes matter, because understanding them is the only way to stop repeating them. What I keep coming back to is this: I was raised to be capable, and my brother was raised to be comfortable. Neither of us asked for those assignments, but we both lived inside them for a long time, and those assignments shaped everything. How we moved through the world, what we expected from it, what we thought we deserved. Elliot didn't become entitled because he was a bad person. He became entitled because no one ever made him feel the weight of anything. And my parents didn't become people who hit their daughter because they were monsters. They became people who believed their own narrative so completely that when I refused to confirm it, something in my father broke open in the worst possible way. I'm not saying any of that to forgive it. I'm saying it because I think the most honest thing I can offer anyone who's heard this story is not triumph. It's clarity. The moment I dialed 911, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about the next version of myself, the one who doesn't teach people that hitting her is something she'll absorb quietly in a hallway and then return to the table and smile through dessert. That version of me was finished. There's something I've learned about integrity, real integrity, not the performance of it, and it's that it costs something every single time. Keeping that condo cost me my family's approval. Calling the police cost me the clean narrative of a perfect wedding weekend. Leaving the reception at 8:30 cost me the illusion that things were fine. Every one of those costs was real. I'm not going to tell you they weren't. But here's the other side of it. Every single thing I have, I built. My education, my license, my career, my home, my savings. None of it was handed to me, and none of it can be taken without my consent. That's not luck. That's years of choosing difficulty over comfort, of doing the boring and unglamorous work of becoming someone who can stand in a hallway and not crumble. The dinner party I had in February, Lacey, Priya, Jonah, 3 other people I loved, that happened in a home I own. We stayed until past midnight because nobody wanted to leave. That evening cost me nothing but time and pasta and 2 bottles of wine, and it was worth more than anything my parents ever offered me because it was mine. Freely, cleanly, entirely mine. You build the life you're willing to pay for, and you protect it the same way.